Hello and welcome back to Fact or Fiction, where we smash myths and spill truths in queer culture. I'm Rory Hunter, LMFT, LPCC, and today's Fact or Fiction question is this: do queer people struggle with intimacy more than others? And if so, why? Fiction. Many queer people deeply crave intimacy, but were never taught how to feel safe in it, and that distinction matters. Research consistently shows that queer people report similar or even higher levels of desire for emotional closeness, romantic attachment, and partnership compared to heterosexual peers. And for reference, the citations to this research are included below the video. Long-held stereotypes about queer people have conditioned many people to believe that gay men just want sex, not relationships, gay men prioritize sex over relationships, queer relationships aren't as stable, healthy, or concerned about the future as straight relationships, and that queer people are lonely and die alone, a particular common trope for many of us coming out in the 80s, 90s, and noughties. Whilst these stereotypes are grossly generalized and unfair, they are born out of misconceptions around queer people's difficult history with intimacy and relationships that is far more about what society made us believe about queer people and their relationships, which was almost entirely negative. For many queer people, intimacy didn't begin in safety, it began in hiding, which is why it can be so hard. Growing up, a core part of who you were may have needed to be concealed to survive. Your desires, your feelings, your gender identity and expression, your body and your truth. When a child learns that love and acceptance are conditional, that authenticity could lead to rejection, bullying, or danger, the nervous system adapts. You learn to stay vigilant, to perform instead of reveal, to protect instead of connect. Over time, that adaptation can look like what I would call an intimacy disorder. Not as an official diagnosis, but as a survival pattern. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a problem exclusive to queer people, and not all queer people grew up in these conditions. But when we are comparing queer versus cis hetero individuals, a lot more queer people experience this kind of upbringing compared to heteronormative folks. Brené Brown teaches us that vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, creativity, and connection. But she also reminds us of something crucial, that to be vulnerable, you must learn to let go of the shame. And many queer people were taught explicitly and implicitly that the core of who we are is wrong, dangerous, or unlovable. So basically, to be ashamed of who they were. That's what internalized homophobia and transphobia do. They turn a social problem into an internal one. So intimacy doesn't feel like closeness. It feels like exposure. And exposure for someone who has been shamed can feel terrifying. Brené Brown's research into shame also shows that it thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment, but that it is empathy, the experience of being seen and understood without condemnation, is the antidote. Unfortunately, many queer people grew up without being seen or understood. We grew up without mirrors of healthy same-sex relationships, models of emotionally intimate queer love, adults who could say you are lovable exactly as you are. So we often grew into adulthood longing for connection, but without any roadmap for how to actually create it safely. This helps us better understand something often misunderstood. Queer people experience significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, trauma, and substance use. Not because of who they are, but because of what they endured. Drugs and alcohol can temporarily quiet shame, lower defenses, soften fear, and create closeness without having to actually be vulnerable. They don't create intimacy, but they can certainly simulate it. This is where chemsex culture becomes important to name. Chemsex can offer immediate belonging, intensity, sexual and emotional openness, a sense of being wanted, desired, and seen. For people who have few tools for sober, vulnerable, authentic connection, it can feel like the closest thing to intimacy they've ever known. But it obviously comes at a huge cost. Physical risks, psychological harm, devastating addiction, loss of self, loss of life. Chemsex doesn't heal the wound, it just numbs it. And numbness is not the same as true connection. Here is the deeper, more compassionate truth. Many queer people are not intimacy avoidant, they are shame injured. They're not afraid of love, they are afraid of being seen and then abandoned. They don't lack desire for connection, they lack experiences of safe connection. If there is one message I want to leave you with, it's this. You deserve intimacy that does not require you to disappear. You deserve connection that does not put your life at risk. You deserve love that grows from authenticity, not anesthesia. Healing shame to create intimacy isn't about forcing vulnerability. It's about creating safety, empathy, and self-compassion where shame once lived through community building, chosen family, treating each other with kindness and respect, and creating spaces in which we feel safe to be vulnerable. Until next time, look after yourself and each other.